The world functions according to quantum mechanics, but the average person just looks at classical physics. The difference is, in classical physics, they reduce everything to a single cause and effect. This happened because of this. Whereas in quantum mechanics, it's a complexity. It's not a single cause and effect. Everything's interconnected. I was interested in trying to figure out why empires rise and fall. And I came across a list of financial panics, which happened to be international, published in 1907. And it started with 1683 and went up to 1907. So I just took an average of the 26 events and it turned out to be 8.6 years. And when I plotted this thing out, to my surprise, it was picking all the turns, but even to the very day. And at first I thought it's got to be a coincidence. And then 87 crash right to the day again. I mean, so it was like, why is it so accurate? I couldn't quite figure that out. So I broke it down, and it turned out to be 3,145 days. It was like, oh, shit, that's pi, which is the perfect cycle. When you go back, everything is a derivative of this. This cycle that I stumbled upon, which is 8.6, you look at it builds up in intensity, you get to like 51.6 years. But even, it's fractal. So you take like 3 times that, ends up being 25.3. The precession of the equinox, 25,300 years. I mean, it's in the universe. It shows up everywhere. The ancient coins, strangely enough, they started with, gold statters, 8.6 grams. Why? This has shown up constantly. So it's not my opinion. The vast majority of analysis out there is linear, which comes from the classic physics side. And it's always wrong. It's like climate change. Oh, went up 1 degree this year, so it's going to do that forever. And we're all going to die in 50 years. There's a cycle to everything. Nothing goes up forever. Anybody that trades the stock market, you don't say, oh, gee, the Dow went up 1,000 points this month. It's going to do that forever. We know that's not true. War, when I put all this together, I basically correlated it. And what comes out of it is very interesting. War does not take place when everybody's fat and happy. Turn the economy down, and that's when you get war. People are aggravated, they're pissed that they lost, whatever, you name it, whatever excuse. And they tend to be contagions on a global scale. For example, in 509 BC, Rome overthrows its Tarquin king, and a republic is born. Within a few months, the Greeks go, that's a good idea. And Athens is born, all right? Democracy. It's the same thing throughout. George Washington is inaugurated 1789. The French go, that's a good idea. French Revolution, Bastille Day, 1789. Tiananmen Square falls. Berlin Wall falls a few months later. All these things are connected. It seems as though, even like what we're seeing right now, and because they will act no matter what you're talking about, if it's finance, war, or whatever, people will always act out of their own self-interest and what they believe. When there's a financial crisis, what happens? They form a committee. The committee's always out there to see who did it. They no mirrors in government. They never look at anything that they do, okay? It's always, what did we do to them? And that's standard for all governments. Look, I've been called in to every financial crisis since 1974. I've seen it from Asia to Europe to the Middle East. And my summation, when you're a kid, your parent will say, don't stick your finger in that candle. It's going to hurt. We all still do it. All right. Now you know you put your finger in that flame and it's going to hurt. Okay. You don't do it again. Problem with governments, they change. And as they change, administrations come, go, whatever, there's no collective memory.
Yeah.
They don't learn from past mistakes. I've listened to so many investigations, and they all have separate credit ratings according to their ability. I said that's going to happen in Europe. So what you see in Europe today is that people will buy the Bunds and sell the Italian, etc., whatever. This brings us to the problem currently with war. They face an economic debacle. Germany's 25% of the GDP of Europe. First came, COVID, lockdowns, then they put in the climate change, and then they stupidly put in sanctions against Russia. Mm-hmm. You have wiped out so many small businesses, all right? And then with the climate change, you saw tens of thousands of people protesting with Volkswagen. Oh, because you have to stop gas cars and make electric and all this stuff. Economically, the German economy has actually shrunk by minimum 3%, probably up to 5%. By that, I mean not a recession. I'm talking about the number of possible jobs has declined. That's 25% of the EU. The EU is doomed. It cannot recover. They're still running around with the climate change nonsense. And this is why they need war with Russia. Because no matter what government you look at when they're in trouble, they need an external enemy. Look, Biden put sanctions on Russia. Gasoline prices went up. What did he say? It was Putin's inflation, not his. Carney in Canada, he ran against Trump, not domestic issues. Oh, Trump wants to, take all of Canada, vote for me, and I'll stop that. You need an external enemy when you have nothing else to offer. Okay? Europe is going to collapse. Whenever you create a centralized government, they will always exercise everything in their own possible power. The example of that, just look at Russia. When Lenin ran, his idea was actually built on the United States. Communism, yes, but he proposed that each republic retained its sovereignty. And he even wrote a letter, do not let Stalin succeed me. It's widely assumed in Russia that Stalin may have even poisoned Lenin. And so what happened? He seizes power, one size fits all, grabbed all the power to Moscow. This is the problem you have. A centralized government, once it grabs that power, all right, it's not going to give it back. Look, you had Vance at the Munich conference blasting him about free speech. They think that if they can prevent people from talking about it, they can retain power. That's what this is about. Look at the AfD in Germany. Oh, they wanted to ban it at first. Then they called them all Nazis. Now it's the number one party. All right. Portugal shifted, same way. Poland, Nigel Farage in Britain, reforms number one. You look at the interest expenditures as a percent of GDP. All right. Britain's at like around 8.5 or something. or around 3.5. I mean, it's comparable to Italy. You know, the debt crisis over there is monumental. And they don't have the economy to sustain it. Just look at Germany. Germany has followed the mercantile model. We build stuff, we sell it to you, we get rich, okay? But they don't allow that to pass to the people. Germans have the highest tax rate. If you can Google it, you'll see the net worth of an average German is less than that of an Italian.
Yeah, they're very poor.
Yes.
No one owns a house, right?
This is the problem in Germany. They have been so afraid of hyperinflation from the 30s, from the 20s, that they oppress their own people. China has looked at both models. It's trying to copy the United States. It's trying to create a consumer-based economy. The capitalization of the New York Stock Exchange, just one exchange, is worth more than all of Europe combined. Home Depot, the IPO, when that was launched, it was worth more than all the IPOs of Europe. I mean, they're against capitalism. They're against just about everything. Just look at World War I. What did they do? They shut down all the stock markets. This is the push for the digital currency in Europe. All right, they go to a digital currency, and that's it. You can't get it out. Spain just did announced that you can't take more than $3,000 in cash out of your account without government permission. This is freedom? Oh, Putin's this dictator. It's beginning to look the other way around. You know, everything that they accuse Putin of, they are doing. Denying free speech. It's becoming much more like a socialistic communist state. And it's not sustainable. But all they're doing is trying to retain their power. And as they do, they get more oppressive. The more oppressive they do, the lower the economy goes. NATO is its sole purpose is war. Like I've said, I've seen the internal memo stuff. When all the money was going to climate change, they were afraid that they're losing money. Okay? That's their salaries for doing nothing. That's their pensions for doing nothing. So what do? They have to keep saying, oh, Putin wants to invade Europe. Well, Putin's been there since 1999. Why hasn't he? Because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
All right. Europe has tried to invade Russia 3 times. This brings you to war. All right. You know, there has to be a profit to do this. Russia is the richest country in the world from natural resources. Even Maggie Thatcher said they had got everything from platinum, gold, oil, timber. It's estimated their natural resources are worth $75 trillion. That's double the U.S. national debt. So there are some of these people, just like you have the crazy ones in Israel thinking this can be the Armageddon and we get the second coming if we do this now and blow up the temple, whatever. In Europe, you have the same kind of delusional ideas. And it's like, if we can conquer Russia, then we'll have the $75 trillion. The U.S. will be back to this vassal state and we will rise again like the Roman Empire. I mean, just look at the neocons. They wage endless wars, okay? And they use linear analysis. Oh, we're going to take out Saddam. Does anybody ask, okay, if you're successful, what comes next? They never ask that question. I mean, Vietnam, what are we there for? You're going to conquer it? What are you there for? What is your objective? There is never an objective. Afghanistan, we're there for 20 years. 20 years. Iraq cost us $3 trillion. If you look at the national debt, all right, we're still paying interest on World War I. They never pay anything off. These neocons, most of the debts of Europe and the United States did not go to to build the economy or widows and orphans and, we care about them. No, it goes to interest to keep the debt rolling and to war projects constantly. Was Iraq worth $3 trillion? And then we're going to be paying interest on that? You'll be, doubling that, basically the cost of Iraq, assuming that everything just continued as is, which that's not the case, but we'll be paying, $10 trillion for Iraq by the time you get to the 2030s. There's no intention of ever paying off any debt. Capital moves like a herd of wild animals. I developed a model to track this. The first time I encountered that it had anything to do with war, we had a major bank in Lebanon, and they called and asked if we could do a model on their currency, the Lebanese pound, that somebody had written down in a journal back to the mid-19th century. I said, sure, we put it in. And out came and the computer said their country was going to fall apart in 8 days. I thought there was something that had to be wrong with the data. I called the client. I said, look, this data is no good. I mean, it says your country's going to fall apart in 8 days. And very calmly, he said, well, what currency does it recommend? And I was like, huh? I said, well, it says the Swiss franc. 8 days later, the Civil War began. We had another client who was one of the biggest shippers in the Gulf. And he called and said, Iraq's going to start attacking shipping in the Gulf tomorrow. What do you think gold's going to do? I said, you tell me the war's going to start tomorrow? Yeah. Okay. By 1998, now I understood. The computer was forecasting wars because somebody always knows in advance and they start moving their money. So that bank in Lebanon, they called me for a model because they saw it moving themselves. They just came to me for the timing, not for the forecast. So by 1998, I had understood that somebody always, war comes when you see the money starts to move in advance, because somebody always knows. So I stood up in June of 1998 in London, and the computer said that Russia was going to collapse, and I said I'd give it a little more than 30 days. What I didn't realize at the time was the London Financial Times happened to be in the back of the room. And they put it on the front page of the second section. Armstrong says that Russia's going to collapse. And we're going to have a bunch of nukes running around, etc. Russia collapses. That's the long-term capital management crisis, etc. That's when the CIA came in and said, all right, fine. We've been monitoring you guys for quite some time. And they wanted me to go down and build the model for them. I said, look, it took me a long time to do this. I said, I'll be glad to run any study you need from here. And they said that, no, they had to own it. And I said, well, it's not for sale. So that started my whole nightmare with government. But so what I've learned over the years is that capital, somebody always knows. The Hamas attack in October last year, you see all the defense stocks started moving a week in advance. Oh, yes. It's always the same thing. It doesn't matter what country we're looking at, somebody always knows. Look at this attack on Iran. All right. Normally, you would expect gold to start taking off, dollar rising. Didn't happen. Why? They knew this was going to shut down really quick. All right, it's gold went right up, peaked on our model's specific, benchmark target, backed off. These things, when you look at the markets, they are objective. They're not emotional, and they show you what's happening. And I can tell you, our computer warns that Europe will lose. It's too much of in a weak state economically. As I have mentioned, that you have Britain at over 3.5% of GDP is going to interest. Now NATO wants 5% on top of that. So, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about at least 10% of GDP is now going for something that totally has nothing to do with improving the economy? Usually what they do is they create a false flag. That's very, very common. World War I, the Lusitania. They said they were neutral. Oh, we wouldn't be doing such. Germany said they are using passengers as a shield to get arms to Europe. U.S. said, no way are we doing that. And I think it was 1987, they discovered the Lusitania, and then suddenly the government says, well, be careful, the hull was full of ammunition. They lie about everything. You have Project Northwoods, actually proposing to kill Americans, blame it on Cuba. Kennedy said no and didn't want to go into Vietnam, so they took him out. Richard Nixon, one of the tapes I believe had said he had the head of the CIA in his office, and he said, I know who killed JFK. And next thing you know, they go after him, Watergate. The guys that get caught are the CIA. I think two guys from the hood probably could have done a better job. Oh, you got me. I bumped into Nixon on the beach in New Jersey after he was president, and he gave up his Secret Service protection. Why? Because didn't trust them. You had Hitler, burn the Bundestag to blame it on communists. It's all you ever see. I mean, weapons of mass destruction never took place. There isn't a single war. Tonkin Gulf, Vietnam. We were never attacked. Even Nixon, even Johnson had said, for all he knew, they were shooting at whales that night. There isn't a single war that has taken place that they haven't lied about. I believe it was Churchill said, the truth is so precious in war, it needs a bodyguard of lies to protect it. And so this is what you're looking at. They will create some sort of a false flag. The Iranian press just recently did say that they called the United States, that they assumed that they had information that Israel would create a false flag attacking something to do with America to blame Iran, to get U.S. fully engaged in there. And they said, it's not us, and we're telling you in advance of what they're trying to do. This is standard. I don't care what side you're talking about, left, right, whatever, they all do it. Yeah, look, Israel's attack on Iran, number one, they knew they could not take out the nuclear facilities, okay? So why do it? This was regime change. They went after to decapitate the government and kill everybody that was at the head. They used that strategy with Hamas. They used it with Hezbollah, etc. I believe it was Trump that said, don't take out the supreme leader. The danger of this type of tactic, when you have just a dispute that's economic, all right, fine, I'll give you this territory, you give me this back, all right? This is religious, all right? There's no compromise here. And I'm not basically just talking about that. I mean, just look at the Protestant Reformation. You see the same thing. North, and in the south of Ireland are still divided. I've been in Bavaria where they said, "Oh, tomorrow's a holiday." I said, "What's the holiday?" "We won the war." I said, "Which war are we talking about?" Now, they beat Prussia because they were Protestant. Bavaria was Catholic. You go to England, they still call Catholics papes, and that's from the Civil War back 1649.
Yeah.
So you're not, when you get involved in religion, and that's the biggest danger with this Middle East war. The neocons, look, I know Bill Kristol. Back in the 90s, he told me if we take out Saddam Hussein, Assad out of Syria, and Gaddafi will bring peace to the Middle East. I said, you're out of your mind. You basically need dictators like that because, first of all, we drew the borders in carving up the Ottoman Empire, all right? And we didn't do it ethnically or religiously, all right?
But striking Iran like that.
Yeah, the result of the Israelis' attempt for regime change to decapitate the leadership has exactly the opposite effect. You then solidify people there against the external enemy. But this is standard. Netanyahu is a neocon. All right? This is the thinking process of them. And I've heard this complete deranged nonsense. All right? Oh, if we go into Russia and we remove Putin, they'll give us like a ticker tape parade and cheer. I said, no, they're not. They're going to shoot your ass. They demonize the opposition to the point that they just believe their own BS. And they don't understand humanity, how civilization's going to work. Look, we created the whole Ukrainian war. Victoria Nuland was over there handing out sandwiches in Maidan. You had John McCain, who I had met, and honestly, I felt like after I shake hands, I needed a shower. He was on the stage over there. We're behind you. Overthrow your government. America's behind you. Can you imagine if Lavrov from Russia stood on the steps of the Capitol building in U.S., overthrow your government, we're with you.
It's aggressive.
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, they don't care about anybody else's country. They don't care about the people. You look at Boris Johnson, another one of these neocons. There was a peace deal in Ukraine. He hops on a plane, goes over there, and this made the front page of the Pravda press in Ukraine. No, you're not allowed to sign a peace deal. We want war. The death toll was basically 130,000 at that point. Mm-hmm. It's now over 1 million. Do they care if any Ukrainian is still standing at the end of the day? No, they don't. When we took out Iraq, all right, I can tell you they were like, wow, we got away with it. Russia, China, nobody stepped in, okay? We're all powerful. That's not going to work with Iran. First of all, because of all this climate change and then sanctions, which never work even once in history. You put all these sanctions on Iran. So China built a railway right into Iran, and they get 80% of Iran's oil. You know, but this is what they do all the time. They put the sanctions on Russia. Oh, that will cause it to collapse. The thinking process that I have heard, all right, is that they think they put on these sanctions, it will hurt the people, which is their objective. The people will then rise up and overthrow their government. Hasn't worked once. The biggest problem with this war on Iran is that you have Netanyahu is a neocon, so his thinking process is the same as the rest of them. It's myopic. They don't consider what is your plan B if you were to overthrow the Ayatollah. What are you going to do? What would come? All right, they never consider that. The problem here is that Iran has the backing now of Russia and China. So we get in there, and what's going to happen? We start shooting down their missiles. Well, then why can't they start shooting down Israeli missiles? You've had Boris Johnson even make the front pages of the Norwegian newspapers. He bluntly came out publicly and said that Britain is at war with Russia. This is a proxy war with Russia. Publicly said that. You have Kalis, the former prime minister of Estonia, who's now the head of in the EU. She's come out outright said Russia's too big and needs to be broken up. All right. Then when Trump was over there trying to get peace with Putin, she came out and said, I don't care what he does, we're not going to honor it. We're looking at basically the political destruction of Europe. They never designed the euro correctly from the beginning. U.S., we have the risk here also of we've already seen the political divide. It doesn't, you have Democrats that are making arguments that have nothing to do with logic or anything else. If Trump says the sky's blue, they have to say it's red. They just have to take the opposite. So the country's basically screwed that way. We're too polarized to survive. And the computer shows the U.S. will break up just as, Europe will, because it's not sustainable. I live in Florida, and it's like Florida is a completely different country from California. It's debatable whether the United States goes into a civil war, but all this expense for the national debt, the vast majority of it is nothing but the accumulation of war debts, period. It does not benefit us. Then they have to keep raising taxes. Oh, let's tax the rich. Let's do this. For what? Okay, we're doing this because you went to war. And it's because somebody paid you in the pocket or whatever. And the corruption is just pervasive. The problem with the migrants is, I think the best example is the Roman Emperor, Valens. Attila the Hun was marching towards the Roman Empire. So he allowed the Goths, who were being pushed out basically by the Huns, he allowed them to come in. They were all the barbarian German tribes. Mm-hmm. He thought he could rebuild the Roman army. Mm-hmm. So he trained them in Roman tactics. And they said, thank you very much. They turned around and waged war on him and killed him in battle. Migrants, the problem we also have with migrants is that you have, it's one of the leading issues of major disease. All the Europeans that came here, most of the Indians died from the diseases that we brought. Okay, you get this all the time. The Black Plague came from Asia. The Tartars, it was in Crimea. Okay, they started catapulting the dead bodies, the plague, into the Italian fort. The Italians got scared. They fled, took it back to Europe, and a third of the population died. I mean, plagues always come from wars like that. World War I, Spanish-American flu, started with all the soldiers. even in ancient history, you see the emperor Lucius Verus also waged war against Persia. Couldn't conquer it. What happened? Brought a plague back from Asia. He died himself, but it's called the Antonine Plague, wiped out tens of thousands in the city of Rome. Plagues come largely with migrations, and migrations are also correlated with wars. We don't get any benefit out of this. All right, this is like a giant chessboard to these neocons, and they could care less if we live or die. There's too damn many of us anyhow, from their perspective. We got to wake the hell up. Who's it benefiting? It's not benefiting anybody. This isn't, the wars of Alexander the Great, where the soldiers share in the spoils. This is, the great military-industrial complex. That's about it. So, most, your attempts to conquer Persia in Roman times always failed. Valerian waged war on Persia. He was captured. He was turned into a footstool for a slave for the Persian king, and when he died, they stuffed him as a trophy. He was the only Roman emperor to ever be captured. The Roman monetary system just collapsed. They even had to pass a law in Egypt demanding that the bankers still accept Roman coins. In war, you even had Churchill admitted the truth is so precious it needs a bodyguard of lies to protect it. Truth is always the first victim. Nobody wants to tell the truth about any war. And so we have to respect that's the outcome. You're going to be manipulated. You're going to be listening to the press, and they just get paid to put out the standard BS. And as if this is moral, we have to save humanity, when you're really destroying it. What I've heard from Europe is they could care less about the Eastern Europeans. They were all, basically communists anyhow. So send them in first. Let them be the vanguard. Let them die first. Take down as many Russians as you can. You even had Lindsey Graham, the tape of him saying, believe it or not, he said, this is the best money we ever spent to kill Russians. Sun Tzu said that no country has ever benefited from a prolonged war. They just don't. Hannibal always captured the Roman silver mines, and he was so great. A prolonged war, he ends up losing, gets called back. Carthage fails. Athens went against Sparta, ended the city. Probably one of the first more famous ones was King Croatius of Lydia. He went to the Oracle of Delphi to ask advice about waging war against Cyrus the Great from Persia, and of course the Oracle said a great empire will be destroyed. So he has naturally assumed that he would win. The empire that was destroyed was his.